The calima rolled in like a veil of rust, turning the sky over Tenerife a bruised orange and coating parked scooters with grit. I told myself it was just dust, Saharan powder carried by trade winds, but my throat tasted of iron as I filmed the wind turbines tilting their white heads toward the Atlantic. The client wanted optimism, green energy, clean horizons. My drone angled past the blades and showed anything but clean. A little RIB moving fast below the cliffs of Los Gigantes, lights off, a last wink of spray, then absence. Diego whistled softly behind me. We used to shoot surf contests together, then he became a hiking guide. He still had the same laugh, carved deep from the cheeks, but his eyes kept checking the water. "You see that?" he asked, as if I hadn't already marked the timestamp. I saw a boat with no lights. I set the drone down and blew grit from the gimbal. Maybe a fisherman. Fishermen don't cut their lights when Guardia Civil patrol. There's a new pattern. He drew the shape in the dust on my car hood. A cove like a bitten moon. Masca. Night landings. My phone buzzed. Airdrop request. Unknown. Diego made a face, half amusement, half warning. I accepted. A single image popped up, a frame from my drone feed, frozen at the exact second the boat vanished into darkness. Text overlaid in grainy block letters. Apaga el Ekmara. I laughed to make the prickling in my scalp feel silly. Troll. Still, I locked the case like it was a sleeping animal and wiped my hands on my jeans. The calima thickened, knitting the distance. The ocean disappeared. That evening, in Puerto de Santiago, the bars moved their tables inside. Sand scratched along the pavements. Diego nursed a quarter-do and said, "Masca Gorge is closed after dark. Landslides since the last rain. If someone is using it, they're either stupid or paid very well." "For what?" He tilted his cup to clink my water. "You're the storyteller. You tell me." Back at my apartment in Playa de la Arena, I reviewed footage. The boat's wake was a dull smear, then nothing. When I scrubbed backward, a second shape kissed the edge of frame, a larger hull farther out. No lights, but the calima ate the horizon so thoroughly I could have been looking at a smudge on my monitor. A knock. 2 knuckles, polite. I called out without rising. The peephole showed an empty hall. On the floor, an envelope, tourist shop white. Inside, a scrap of nautical chart, torn to show a cove west of Masca, and a ferry ticket purchased in my name for the morning crossing to San Sebastián de la Gomera. Diego answered on the first ring. "Someone just sent me a gift," I said. "I'll drive you to the ferry." He paused. "Bring only what you need to run." "What's in La Gomera?" "The part of the story that isn't looking at you," he said, and the way he said it made me taste dust again. Outside, the wind pushed the balcony chairs like they wanted to go somewhere else. I packed batteries, the drone, and a pair of trail shoes I didn't intend to use, placed the map scrap on top, and lay down fully clothed. The calima rattled the windows all night like someone trying handles up and down the coast. Sleep came in brief, shallow bursts. Each time I surfaced, the room glowed ochre, and the wind hummed like an engine idling outside the door, patient, measuring my breaths all night. The ferry punched through the swell, the hull drumming like a cheap bass. On deck, tourists photographed the ghost of tide in the haze. Diego kept his hands in his jacket pockets, his eyes on the wake. "La Gomera looks sleepy," he said. "That's why people choose it." San Sebastián smelled of salt and wet rope. At a cafe, a woman laughed at us for brushing calima off our cups and pointed us toward the Port Authority, where no one would help without paperwork. I didn't have paperwork. I had a torn chart and a ferry ticket somebody else had bought. While Diego argued about drone permits, I called the faint number printed along the chart edge. No answer. A minute later, a message. A location pinned north along the coast, and a single word, escucha. Listen. Diego rented a Jimny and took the cliff road west, switchbacks coiling into Laurel Fog, then dropping toward Vallehermoso. The island was a puzzle of barrancos, green scars cut to the sea. At a lay-by facing basalt stacks, a woman waited with a pelican case at her feet. Wind-tangled grey hair, windbreaker faded by salt. "You're Mara?" she asked. "I'm Ingrid. Hydrophones." She tapped the case. I listened to ships. She led us down goat tracks to a shingle cove where the Atlantic worked itself white on black rock. Ingrid unpacked 2 hydrophones and a recorder. Cables fed into water that looked like oil. "Night traffic," she said. "No AIS, no lights. Ribs meet something bigger out past Los Orgonos. Sometimes engines idle for 20 minutes. Sometimes there's a high-frequency tone. Someone is talking under the noise. Smugglers," Diego said. "If it were just cigarettes or fuel, I would sleep." I put on headphones. The sea hissed. Then, like teeth clicking, a narrowband whine moved through the noise. An engine off. Another. Closer. A voice shouted something the hydrophone didn't catch, and then the carrier again. On, off, 3 times, a pause, twice. "That's not random," I said. "No," Ingrid said. "Binary, most likely. Simple. Robust. They pulse at night when the ferries aren't running." Diego pointed toward a black notch where the cliff sloped. "Sea cave. Launch at high water, slip inside, wait out patrols." We logged engine signatures while the sun slid west. The day felt crowded with ways to speak without being heard. Near dusk, Ingrid stiffened. "RIB," she said. "Fast." A dark shape cut across the cove. The engine dropped to a purr that vibrated the rocks under my feet. A man stood bow forward, scanning the shore with a night vision monocular. I tucked the recorder under kelp and tried to be stone. The RIB idled 50 meters out. The man with the monocular swept once, then pointed inland. High on the road, a pickup's brake lights flashed twice. The RIB curved away and left a V of foam. Ingrid exhaled. "They knew we were here," she said. "Or they wanted us to know they knew," Diego said. We hiked back to the Jimny in silence. Under the wiper lay a smaller scrap of the same chart. A circle had been drawn around the sea cave notch. Next to it, in thick felt tip, "Mañana. Come alone." On the road above, 2 teenagers whistled across the ravine, lilting notes Diego called Silbo Gomero, the hill language. Ingrid watched the cliff notch through binoculars. "If they're patient enough to code with engines, they're patient enough to watch us for hours," she said. She handed me a burner phone. "If anything happens, call this number and say, 'Lunalina.' No names. Full moon." I asked. "Just say it," she said. "Run downhill." The note said come alone, so I did the stupid brave thing and went. Near midnight I parked above Masca and started down the closed trail with a headlamp cupped in my palm. The gorge took the light and swallowed it. A fallen sign creaked. Cerrado poured The air smelled of dust and fennel and cold water where the ravine tightened. Far below, the Atlantic banged in the dark like a door. I moved by touch, a hand against pumice, a foot feeling for the next shelf. Lizards skittered. Stones ticked. An engine purred and went away. At a bend where the walls leaned close, a figure stepped into my beam and lifted a hand. "Light down," he whispered. Night sketched him. Fisherman's jacket, cap, boots scarred with salt. You sent the ferry ticket? I left the ticket, he said. Call me Suso. You brought the drone. Why me? Because you pointed at the right water and didn't scare easy. We walked by starlight until the ravine flattened into a fan of stones the tide combed and uncombed. The sea cave breathed in the cliff. Suso Zareba nosed in the wash, a low shadow with a black outboard tilted like a sleeping animal. You're smuggling, I said. If that word helps you, keep it. Tonight you're filming. He pointed to a shelf. From there. Wide. When the big boat arrives, document the transfer and the signal pulses. If you cut the camera, you walk out at dawn. If you don't, you'll see something you can't post. I set the drone and powered it. The camera saw more than my eyes. The cove a bowl of ink, the cave a keyhole, the open sea a bruise. Suso whistled. From up the gorge, another whistle answered, a pattern I didn't know. Engines. One, then another, then a deep thrum too steady for a yacht. Cruise shapes moved without voices. Suso counted under his breath. On, off, on, pause, on. The hydrophone pattern without a hydrophone. A light winked from the cliffs above. Headlamp, briefly unhood. I thought of Ingrid, run downhill, and felt a dry laugh rise. On the screen, a second RIB ghosted in. Hands where we can see them, a voice said from the dark, amplified thin. A beam cut across the shingle. Drop the controller. Suso didn't move. I know that voice, he said. Ortega. Guardia Civil? I whispered. Sometimes, he said. A man stepped into the beam. Diego. He kept the light low. I told you to bring what you need to run, he said. You didn't listen. You set me up. I pulled you out. He flicked the light toward the big hull. Do you know what's in those containers? Suso laughed once. Not your business. Counterfeit oncology drugs, Diego said. Box to look real, dose to pass basic tests, and wrong in blood. They ship fakes in, skim real stock out. People die quiet. Cheaper than cocaine. The winch squealed. On my screen, figures muscled crates to the RIB. Suso's jaw worked. You don't wear that uniform tonight, he said. No, Diego said. Tonight it's a clean battery and a straight shot. He nodded at my drone. Film. If we make it off this rock, you'll get one chance to hand this to someone who isn't owned. Above, another light winked. A third engine. The gorge amplified everything until it felt like the island itself had woken to listen. I kept filming because stopping chose a side, and I didn't know which killed slower. The drone hummed while the tide breathed and the cliff held breath. Everything slid at once. The big hull edging closer, a third engine rising, another flashlight raking the cliff. Voices overlapped. Spanish, Canarian, a clipped radio bark. Suso shoved his Arab off the stones and swung the bow to block the cave mouth. Film, he said. The second RIB knifed in. A man on its bow reached for a crate. Suso battered his wrist with a boat hook and the crate thumped back. Mara, run, Diego said. He fired a flare low into the cave, blinding everyone for a white second. In that wash I saw men in black shells, a faded guardia jacket without patches, a teenager. I didn't run. The drone hung above the chaos. The camera drank it, the coded pulses from the big hull, on, off, pause, on, the crate swinging, Suso guarding the throat of the cave. A shot cracked from the cliff. Stone spat near my feet. Diego's light went out. Go! He shouted, voice raw. I stumbled inland. Suso gunned the RIB, shouldered the other boat, scraped free, and vanished into the cave. The feed jittered. Climbing at night teaches you about knees and promises. I broke both a little. High above, a light flashed twice, same count as the brake lights. The island spoke to itself in whistles I couldn't read. At the car, I yanked the card. The drone still blinked wreck. Headlights came. Diego, holding his side. "Give me the card," he said. "No. They know you've got it. Take Ingrid's burner. Call the number. Say the words." Another set of lights boiled up the road. Pickup, 2 men. I handed Diego a different card and slipped the real one into my sock. He rammed the pickup and bought me 10 seconds of road. In San Sebastian at dawn, I said, "Luna Lina," into a payphone. A woman swapped the handset. On the new line, a calm voice told me to leave the card under a red buoy behind the fisherman's co-op. 2 guardia smoked and watched gulls. No one stopped me. By noon, the calima lifted. Ingrid found me with coffee and a folded newspaper. Local guide injured in a nighttime fall near Masca. No names. She slid a thumb drive across the table. "Your drone fed your phone." I pulled a recovery. We watched in a room that smelled of lemon cleaner. The images held until the moment that mattered. Then a fern of digital noise bloomed across faces and labels. The audio kept running. The engine pulses clicked their little telegraph, but the picture was gone. "Jammer," Ingrid said. "Private. Clever." 2 days later a parcel arrived in Tenerife. No return. Inside, a wooden whistle and a printout of lab results. Oncology lot numbers tied to shipments into a private clinic in Costa Adage. The debit for my ferry ticket came from that clinic's foundation. I called the burner again. A different voice listened and said, "There are cases open. You will not be the headline." A week after, the ribs stopped pulsing off La Gomera. Or maybe they changed the pattern. Masca reopened to hikers. Sometimes at night, when the wind turns, I hear engines, one close and one far, and I think of Diego pointing at the water. Maybe the crates held poison. Maybe they held medicine stolen for people who couldn't afford the official kind. The tape doesn't say. The only clean horizon I filmed was a turbine turning against dirty sky. If there's a truth, it's down in the cave, where lights go out so stories can move. The island endures. We decide what to call what we did there.